Hey guys, so today we're going to be looking at a pretty unique spot. Uh, I had a small blind flat versus a button open database run, so we're going to look at that spot and playing the flop. I don't think I've ever seen small blind flat sims because, well, I mean, single raise pot sims are pretty difficult to run, at least good ones. So I chose to outsource these and have some pretty big trees run. These are, let's take a look. Yeah, these are 80 gigabyte trees, so quite sizable. And yeah, we're just going to be looking mostly at flop play today and uh, some patterns you should be looking for on different board textures. Um, So yeah, let's hop right into it. So the pre-flop ranges we'll take a look at first. So this is the button open for the 2.5 size. Again, it's a slightly more polar range than the min open, but it looks much like just a standard button open range. And then the small blind flat is just it's going to be it's going to be a good bit of suited ace x, like ace 8, ace 9, ace 10, and then lower pocket pairs at a pretty decent frequency. And then we have a bit of offsuit Broadway cards. Looks like queen 9 suited, queen 10, so some of this stuff. But I'd say the highest density hands are the deuces through sixes, and then like this marginal ace x suited, and then these offsuit Broadways look like they're at a lower frequency, but remember they're offsuit combos, so combinatorically there's going to be more of them. So this will be in there at a decent frequency. So yeah, just wanted to give you guys a look. So when we talk about flop strategies, you'll sort of have an idea of why certain things are happening. So let's just start from the top. Ace 9-8, two-tone. So remember, the first player to act is the small blind. On this board, the out-of-position player is going to have a small leading range, just because the out-of-position player has a lot of ace 9 and ace 8, and then like the pocket 8s and 9s will be in there at a non-zero frequency. And then when check to, the in-position player is just betting small at a high frequency. So this is a board where the out-of-position player will have a good density of strong hands, so the in-position player doesn't want to put a bunch of money in. Also, when the in-position player bets, the out-of-position player is just going to be folding a lot of like the lower pocket pairs and whiffed Broadway cards without a backdoor. So, yeah, I mean, if the in-position player isn't getting any more extra folds from a bigger bet size, like the out-of-position player is slightly folding the pocket pairs up, a bit more, but it's pretty much the same exact folding range. So yeah, and then let's see, ace 4-4, two-tone. It's just a range check. So ace 4-4, the out-of-position player only has one combo of pocket fours, and then a bit of ace 4, but no, like as far as ace x goes, the out-of-position player is at a pretty big disadvantage in general. The in-position player has all the nutted hands as far as like ace king, ace queen, so not going to be leading much on this board. And the in-position player is doing a lot of big betting, like potting and 2xing. This is a board where the in-position player is just going to want to put a bunch of money in with their strongest ace-x, and then trips, and then, you know, check back and mix the rest to try and hit a pair. But the small blind is so tight in this situation that, like, betting any marginal pairs doesn't really make sense, because, like, the out of position player will have all this ace-x suited, and then, like, these middling and low pocket pairs. So it's going to be hard to get called by worse if you bet, like, these middling pairs here. Whereas if you looked at, like, ace 4-4 button versus big blind single raise pot, you would see the in-position player betting all these pairs at a much higher frequency, just, you know, for a small size, just because the out-of-position player is so wide and they're just going to have to float a ton. So as far as hand selection for the in-position player, plenty of flush draws and some backdoor hands. So yeah, and then 6-5 with the backdoors is, you know, these lower hands with backdoor straight are stabbing. Okay. Ace King 2. The out of position player shouldn't really have a betting range on this board. It looks like a small bit, but not much. Pretty much a range check, and then the in-position player just potting with the top of their range. It looks like there's some half potting too, with a bit of King X, which is a bit counterintuitive to me. I'm not exactly sure why King X is betting at all on this board. Okay, that's interesting. I think in game I would just pot this board with ace-x and not worry too much about it. A6-2. Out of position should have a betting range on this board. Yeah, okay, so notice on A6-2, the out of position player is going to have A6, pocket sixes, and pocket twos at a pretty high frequency. So notice how the out of position player has almost 7% of sets. I mean, that's an insanely high density of sets, whereas, like, the in position player has less than 2%. Yeah, and we have, like, as far as 2-pair plus, we have, let's see, like, almost 8.5%, and the in-position player has, like, 3.5%. Yeah, so it's quite a discrepancy in nutted hands. So it goes back to, like, the fundamental principle of why big blinds, like in single raise pots, the big blind checks their entire range is because they don't, like, if they bet any of their nutted hands, their checking range is going to be too weak. If, you know, if they take any of those strong hands out of the checking range. But here we just we don't really need to develop a checking range, because if we bet all of our hands, we have so many nutted hands that we can't get exploited by getting raised. Because if they raise, we're just putting money in with our nutted hands and not worrying too much about it. I mean, this is a small raise, but, like, yeah, the in-position player shouldn't be doing, like, any big raising. Sort of like if villain in any hand has a huge density of nutted hands, we shouldn't be, you know, betting massive or anything like that, just because then we only get called by the nuts, and a lot of our hands just lose expectation that by doing that. So yeah, so that's sort of an interesting hand. Yeah, A6-2, small blind flat. I don't think anyone is donking the spot at all. But you'll see a lot of this on, like, high, low, low boards where, you know, these two bottom cards hit this pocket pair region pretty hard. Especially if like it makes more 2-pair, you'll see the out of position player start to donk a lot. And we'll look at a few more to expand on this. And then if check 2, the position player is just half potting. Yeah. So I'd say you have to think about the small blind flat range as the in-position player. So if you know the out-of-position player is really dense in pocket pairs, say like deuces through sevens, when they flat out of the small blind and don't really flat anything else, well, you can definitely punish that. But firstly, if they never donk, you should just check back your entire range, because they're never betting, so their checking range is just insanely strong. So you don't need to do any betting into that range. But second, if there's a board where if there's a board that doesn't hit this range so hard, let's see, like Jack 8-8. Yeah, so out of position is range checking. If you know they have this pocket pair region at an extremely high frequency, well, now your range is just full of a bunch of pair draws. So like if you have a hand like ace 9 offsuit, for example, you now have 6 outs to beat their lower pair, and you have 3 streets to get them to fold. Like if they only have deuces through sevens, you should just absolutely punish them. Like you should be doing a lot of big betting, and once you hit a pair, like you have the best hand. So just be thinking about that, and think about how capped the out of position player is in those sorts of spots. But yeah, pay close attention to the board texture before you start doing that. Yeah, King 5-3, probably something similar to the Ace 6-2. Okay, yeah, a lot of small betting, about 75%. Yeah, the 5s and 3s are going to make the out of position player a lot of strong hands. Then when check 2, the in-position player is just half potting. Yeah, these double Broadway boards, the out of position player shouldn't be betting much at all, I don't think. Yeah, so just range checking out of position on Queen Jack 3. Here's Queen 10-5. Okay. Yeah, so I guess the small blind has Queen 10 at a decent frequency and pocket 5s, so it's going to develop like a very narrow betting range. But I'd say just on the double Broadway boards in general, just range check. Jack 9-2, probably not going to bet much. Yeah. Again, very slim betting range. I would just stick to donking the boards where you have a lot of sets. 10-5-2, probably one of those. We make a lot of top pair on this board too, so it's just more of a case for betting. So yeah, so a 10 high board makes things a little bit different, because like you have the sets, which are very strong hands, but the 10x will want to bet for protection, especially a hand like 10-9 that doesn't have an overcard. It's a susceptible top pair, so it's going to want to put a slightly bigger bet in. But yeah, top pair on 10-5-2 is going to be pretty vulnerable. So like you'll start to see out of position split sizes on a board like this, where out of position has a lot of top pair, so it's just going to want to put some bigger bets in. 10-7-4, I'd imagine something similar. Okay, so it's not betting much on this board, which is kind of peculiar to me. I guess we don't have as much pocket sevens as we do like the lower, like the sixes and the fives. Nine, 7, 3, a bit of big betting. Eight, 6, 3, I'm sure there's a lot of betting. Okay. I would have expected this to be nearly a range bet. Does more checking than I thought, but yeah, still a lot of betting on 8, 6, 3, two-tone. Yeah, not going to make as much top pair on this board. So you won't see like the sizes split as much, but still loads of very strong hands. And the imposition players doing a good bit of raising with the overpairs. And floating some overcard hands, especially with a backdoor. Yeah. So that's sort of the overview of the flop play. I would say just be mindful of how many nutted hands you have on the board texture before you develop a donking range, and then if you're playing in position, think critically about the out of position range and what range and size functions best against it, because again, you know, if the out of position player only has like small pocket pairs, then you can just you know, punish that capped range, and you know, every overcard hand you have is a strong pair draw, so you can, you know, start to put some big bets in. But that's sort of the main ideas I wanted to get across today. Thanks for stopping by. Remember to like and subscribe. Thanks.